Well, folks, the time has come yet again for me to talk about a video game trailer for, probably an unreasonable amount of time. I don't actually know for sure because I haven't prepared anything for this. I'm sitting down here thinking, oh boy, I may not even have 10 minutes worth of stuff to talk about, but knowing me, that'll somehow turn into 2 hours. But it's still the holiday season, and while I am working on a couple of bigger projects, I wanted to do something a little quick and simple to get another video out quickly, and I figure I haven't really talked about, other than appearing on some other people's shows and on streams, and so I haven't had much cause to talk about Final Fantasy XVI since that initial trailer came out, so why not take another deep dive into some of the trailers that we've had more recently. Though, that being said, while I had the most recent Revenge trailer up a second ago, I think actually the easiest place to start is going to be to talk about some gameplay stuff that we can see a little bit easier if we go back here to the so-called Ambition trailer. I think that's the name of the trailer anyway. Yeah, Ambition. All of them got these fancy names. Fancy one-word names, he says. But I mean, hey, since they're not releasing them, at conventions or whatever, we can't say, the PAX trailer, the E3 trailer, so they gotta give them titles, or else none of us will have any clue what we're talking about, isn't that right? I want to talk about some of this gameplay stuff. It's kind of interesting that we can see a bit of it in the new trailer, and the Revenge trailer, but it doesn't have UIs. There's a couple of things that are a little bit harder to point out there, easier to observe here. So, for those who don't know, most of you probably know at this point, but hey, I don't know, you may be clicking on this with almost no information. The lead combat designer who's working on this game is a guy who worked on previously the Devil May Cry series, also on the Monster Hunter series, I believe. Or did he work on, was it Dragon's Dogma or Monster Hunter or both? Doesn't matter. The point is, the guy they hired to work on this has a bit of an action pedigree, and this game has, not entirely unlike style switching from the Devil May Cry series. We've got up here in the corner, we have icon switching. You have 3 icons equipped at a time. Presumably this will be after you beat up other icons or befriend other icons or whatever, because one of the lore details in this at the very beginning, they talked about early on, was that our main character, Clive, will have kind of the blessing of Phoenix from minute 1. He's the protector of Joshua, his younger brother, who is the dominant of Phoenix, and he has Phoenix abilities from minute 1, but obviously he'll acquire some other ones here, and I think you can have up to 3 equipped at a time and switch around between them, and there's a number of interesting UI things going on here. So if we look down here in the bottom right-hand corner, we have the 4 face buttons, right? We got attack and we got jump, we got arrow and deadly embrace with a picture of Garuda. So what we got also right here, though, is key. 2 little red dots, 2 little green dots, and 2 little purple dots for our green, red, and purple characters here. Also, the R2 button. So some of these gameplay clips will show it a little bit more obviously than others, but you're going to be holding down the R2 button to switch what these face buttons are displaying, but each of these different characters, each of these different icons we're switching between has multiple different abilities. So by default, our face buttons are seen here. But if we hold down R2, then the attack button changes to gouge, and arrow changes to Rook's Gambit. Presumably, we just used Rook's Gambit. And we can see here that these switching the face button around abilities with these kind of rune designs and these fancy names, these are presumably abilities that function on cooldowns. After we activate that move, and Clive does this big Spinaroonie attack here, Gambit counter, times 12, star ranking go up, get S rank. This is something else that's been discussed in interviews, it's not entirely clear, but it seems like there will be certain sections of the game that, it's not like the whole game's gonna be level-based, but there will be sections of the game that score you in a similar way to how a DMC game would score you. I have to assume it'll just be like individual encounters at the end where it would normally give you an experience screen in any other Final Fantasy game. It'll also give you some kind of style score. Maybe there'll be a way to replay these individual sections. But anyway, we can see here this green meter around arrow filling back up. Honestly, pretty quickly. I'm going frame by frame, and it's refilling very fast. It seems like very fast without ability to refill, so maybe we're looking at developer tools and the abilities are refilling a little bit faster, or maybe we're just very generous, who knows? But you can see these shortcuts down here showing 2 colored dots for each one, showing you which abilities are currently available to you. What was it? Gambit, whatever, Thieves Gambit, what was it called? Rogue's Gambit, Rook's Gambit. There we go. You see how prepared I am for this video? Did no preparation whatsoever. This Rook's Gambit ability is now grayed out, so we can see at a quick glance which icons have which abilities are still active, so we can swap between them, and we know what we have available, what is still recharging, etc. Now, this move over here, the move that appears at the right that has the picture of the icon in question. Well, I'll try to show what these look like a little bit better in a minute here. But anyway, well, we got Heat Wave here, which appears to be some kind of dodge or parry move or whatever to block out this Aeroga attack from Garuda here. From Benedicta, as she's halfway transformed into her other form here. Something else that's interesting, this could be so there's something that's been talked about a lot of the difficulty modes in this. There's going to be apparently a story-focused difficulty mode that's like, hey, if you don't play action games, don't worry about it. A lot of this is going to be vastly simplified and made easier for you to play, etc., etc. So I don't know if we're looking at an easy mode thing or what, but if we look here, or it could be a specific part of the Heat Wave ability, but when we seemingly perfect parry this attack, we slap down this Aeroga, Benedicta is completely frozen. She stops animating entirely and just hangs out there. I don't know if this is just something, like, if you perfect parry a move in this game, the enemy is completely frozen to give you a moment to get free hits in, and this is the game's way of encouraging you to learn to perfect parry by really rewarding it, or if this is a matter of the difficulty mode that's been selected. But regardless, here, you see the Heat Wave counter used seemingly frame perfect, and it causes Benedicta to literally freeze in midair and let us get off some big boy attacks here. I wonder what we're using here. Is this a follow-up? Heat Wave counter, yeah, okay. So it looks like if you use Heat Wave perfectly, then you hit attack afterwards, you get to do these ranged Heat Wave attacks instead. So this one is interesting when we're fighting Odin here. We have Shiva equipped. And right before he does this little midair dash, you'll watch down here, Cold Snap kind of bounces as if it's been used. See that? It kind of does a little animation as if it's been activated. Whoop. And Clive, when this is hit, a little blue cape appears behind him, and he dashes through the air. So Cold Snap, presumably, is a mid-air dodge move that we have that lets us stay airborne for slightly longer. And the other abilities seem to be similar. If we go back a little bit, we don't see it here, but yeah, Phoenix Shift. We don't see it used here, but we saw it used in the very first trailer, and we can see it more clearly a little bit later on in this trailer. Phoenix Shift is an ability that lets us jump from where we are currently standing, warp instantaneously up to a standing enemy's position. So it seems like each icon comes with either a movement ability or some other kind of specialized thing that's just part of your kit that doesn't seem like it needs to recharge, but I suppose we'll see exactly how that works later. Not quite clear right now. We will stop here for just a moment. We can see, I don't remember this dude's name. I'd have to look at the website. The American website, the English language website, had a bunch of like character and world information on it that is gone now for some reason. They like deleted those sections of the page, but they do exist on the Japanese site still. So you can still go look at like screenshots of what was on the American site because they're out there. And you can go Google Translate the Japanese site. But for some reason, they got rid of the character bios and stuff on the American page. Not sure why they did that. Anyway, check out this glowing blue sword that he summons. We'll see this again a couple times in a few minutes. But just take note of that Odin sword that we got right there. That this dude who's, again, the human character's name, I don't remember. We'll catch it later, perhaps. Just keep this big blue sword in mind that this dude is carrying around. It's interesting. Our character Jill here, we got hard confirmation this is Jill with the most recent trailer and with the website update stuff. She's a friend of Clive's when they're both children. We see her in some of these scenes set in the duchy in the presumably opening hours of the game where Clive is still 15. I don't think we see her in this trailer as a young character, though. There are two time skips in this game. There's we start here where Clive is 15. The game fast forwards to him being somewhere in his 20s, and then it fast forwards again to him being somewhere in his 30s. We can kind of tell by his costume when we can see him here. If he's got this red outfit and this big black cloak that we see here, that is latest game Clive, at least as far as we've seen so far. This one right here in the just black uniform with only a couple of small red highlights and no cloak. Is that all the gameplay that we see in this one with actual UI elements on screen? Okay then. In that case, I'm actually gonna go backward to the Dominance trailer because there's some more UI on the screen here, and I want to talk about gameplay for a little while longer. Even though I broke into you know, story and character stuff for a second there. I want to talk about gameplay some more. Anyway, but right here you can see mashing out an attack, then immediately mashing the fire button here and shooting a fireball out in the middle of the combo. And what's interesting is that immediately after that, the attack button is hit again, and now Clive comes out with a sword that's been imbued with fire. So if we're doing a sword combo and we use a spell in the middle of it and then go into further sword combo, does that cause whatever, is there something we can do where the spell we previously used now becomes part of an elemental attack on the follow-up melee attack? Pretty neat. Then another follow-up burst shot, as the game declares loudly at the ending of the combo. Anyway, here we got some of the Phoenix abilities. Rising Flames seems like it's being used here, and this is a Phoenix Wing uppercut we saw in literally the first trailer a couple of times in the gameplay in that first trailer. So this is one of our basic Phoenix attacks, seems like. And there's some on-the-fly style switching, or I guess summon switching here, where we're using Wicked Wheel to do a big attack on this guy in the air, then switching over to Titan and using the upheaval ability to come down and take people out. So it seems like a lot, but since you're only doing 3 icons at once, you're really only juggling 6 main abilities and presumably 3 elemental like attack types, right? Like each of them is gonna have fire, air, blizzard, earth, lightning, whatever, right? And then the one other face button ability down here, Titanic Block, the Phoenix Dash, whatever, Cold Snap. I don't remember, I saw somebody posting a screenshot of this. I don't think it's actually in any of the trailers because this function, it was in some screenshots that got released. I don't think it's in the most recent trailer, but down here on our face buttons, obviously we have items. When Torgal, the wolf, who's one of our party members, is in the... You're going to have party members in this game. We'll talk about this a bit more when I look at the most recent trailer, but I don't think there's UI on screen in the most recent trailer, so I guess I saw it in some screenshots some people uploaded. But if Torgal is in your party, then there will be a left D-pad button here, which you can press, which will then open up a couple of abilities that Torgal can perform. I think they're like a heal ability, something like Sick, or something like that, and some kind of other attack. So presumably you can give him a couple of commands, even though it's mostly AI automated, and your other party members seem to be fully AI. I don't really have a problem with this. It's very hard to manage party members in a game like this. I thought Final Fantasy VII Remake did a pretty good job at it, and that was already, the system was being heavily strained in that game. This game is a lot faster, and Clive is an extremely complicated character to play with all the abilities that you're juggling around with. I don't think trying to ask people to maintain all of the other characters at the same time is necessarily a good idea. But anyway, same stuff going on here. Dark is now our elemental ability. Arm of Darkness is our, I don't know what we're gonna call this, just your face button, your standard face button ability. But then we also got these here. So this big spinny attack, where he's making a big blue spiky weapon appear, interesting, I feel like we've seen something like this before, is one of Odin's abilities. How curious. Oh yeah, I forgot there's sex in this game. Uh-oh, gonna get demonetized, better fast forward. What's interesting here is that we use Diamond Dust, which is most definitely not one of the abilities we have on screen here. In fact, we're following up on Diamond Dust with one of these abilities. So presumably this is some kind of limit break or some other big move that we're gonna have to build up to, which makes sense because Diamond Dust is traditionally Shiva's finishing move. None of these meters decrease though, so is that simply developer mode, or are these meters for something else? Who knows? Who can say? I guess we'll have to find out another day. All right, here we go. We get a good look at what Deadly Embrace is now. So we're using that spinning move that we were looking at previously that I've already forgotten the name of. Don't worry about it. Gambit counter. Woohoo. Something Gambit. Yeah. But if you look down here, you'll see as we're performing this move, the player's trying to mash out Deadly Embrace very badly. And Deadly Embrace is another ability we've been seeing since the first trailer, though we may not have known it, which is where he shoots out this little wire and grabs onto the enemy's head. Throws him to the ground. Clearly we got some grappling stuff going on here. In fact, how foolish of me, I actually almost overlooked this. We use Deadly Embrace to throw this thing to the ground, right? And then while the animation of Deadly Embrace is still happening, you'll see up here and down here, we switch over to Phoenix really fast, and then use Phoenix Shift in the middle of this attack, or rather right when this attack ends, to do a fire warp through the air, down, and attack him immediately for a quick follow-up. Alrighty, I didn't want to go and try and track down all the screenshots myself really fast, because I don't think they're all on the website. They released in some really funky ways, so here we go. Stealing some hard work from some other people on Twitter here of actually looking at these, but I knew that I could find the screenshots a little bit faster here. But yeah, so you can see there's kind of a grayed out spot for the left D-pad button down here, but then in another scene where Torgal is actually present and is part of the party, We can hit left, and there's a little picture of a wolf over here. And here we can see holding it down, it switches over from items to wolf, and we have 3 different abilities. Now, possibly there'll be even other stuff we can switch between with left on the D-pad other than items and dog, but, you know, remains to be seen. I don't think we've seen anything else so far. Anyway, while we don't have UI stuff to point out here in the Revenge trailer, there is some more gameplay footage, so we can talk about, again, we see using the Phoenix Warp ability here. We can see, this looks like Torgal, our companion dog, attacking some stuff, and at least one other human character back here. Looks like Torgal using some kind of ability to launch these guys up in the air, and then us using the Phoenix Warp ability to actually jump up there and attack them. We've got another instance here of an enemy that seems to be just standing stock still until we hit them. This guy right here seems to just not be animating as we're spinning around here. So again, I don't know if this is like when you do a perfect counter with one of the icon abilities, if they just get frozen for a second for you to retaliate, but it certainly looks that way. This, whatever is going on here, this feels very much like an ultimate move, similarly to a diamond dust or whatever. This feels like something you have to earn, that you can't just pop off whenever you want, because that's if not a screen clearer, at the very least, a screen disruptor. We have another example here of switching between stuff really fast. So we saw this kind of thunderstorm ability or whatever it's called from Shiva earlier. Or this, I don't know, this could be a Rama ability, but it looks a lot like the same lightning attack we saw him do earlier for Shiva. Who knows? Could be either one of them. But regardless, switching, even though there is an edit here clearly. Just made to look a little bit faster. This just make the trailer snappier, I'm sure. The attack is still going off, so he switches very quickly over to Phoenix, performs that Phoenix warp to get in and hit him while he's still down. In fact, doesn't even look like the normal just swing at him. Appears to be some kind of finishing move. He goes in, lands on him, and just explodes the man. This kills the man, Clive. Some more gameplay stuff coming up here. We've got what will presumably be a party for at least a decent portion of the game. We got Jill, Clive, our main character. We got Torgal, and we got Sid. Good old Sidolphus, because that's what they're always called if it's in Ivalice. I mean, if it's in a Matsuno fanboy game. Now here we have, once again, what looks like that like flame wall counter or whatever. Like we've just finished perfect parrying an attack with that one Phoenix move, and then we're counterattacking, but Dragon isn't frozen. So is it a matter of perfect parrying, or is it a matter of difficulty mode? Hard to say. I have to assume that there's some kind of restriction on when you can use this grab move, because if you could just throw this out and grapple and stun enemies whenever, like how would that work? So it's gotta be probably not like a stagger meter or but it's gotta be like the finisher of a combo, or they've gotta be off balance or something. I'm sure there's gonna be some kind of condition of when you're allowed to use that ability. Now this is a very interesting clip right here, because we got this fight going on, and seemingly we are using a Garuda kit here because we've got wings coming out and we're cruising around. And Benedicta was doing this, however you say her name, was doing this during our boss fight with her. But you'd think that's I was thinking, oh, you pick up a little bit of ability from each of them, when you pick up some kind of power from them or whatever. Picking up the ability to summon wings and fly seems like a lot to be able to do without also being literally the dominant of Garuda. So, I don't know. It's less of a gameplay thing and more of an interesting story thing. But perhaps this is her limit break, right? Perhaps this is the Garuda limit break, because you do a couple of quick melee attacks with the wings out. You kind of do it. You do a little flyby on the enemy, or I don't know, maybe that's even just a dodge out of the way, and then you do a big lightning attack. But here, this one is presumably Odin's limit break. We can see Clive has the big spiky purple sword, does a judgment cut on the enemies. A lot of screen blur going on here, not so great. And then spins around. Nice Zantetsuken finisher here. Wacha! Very nice. Got to assume, sometimes limit breaks don't have to be massive, screen wiping things like Titans. Sometimes this is all you need to really feel like you're very, very cool at the end of the day. Anyway, I think that's about all I have to say on the subject of gameplay, and I'm honestly not sure how much I have to say on, story content and other stuff looking at these, because, I don't know, I could tell you to go Google Translate the Japanese website, and it'd tell you just about everything that I can glean from this. And then I'm also not going to spend the video reading the Google Translated Japanese website to you guys. I don't know, that's just not my bag, baby. But a couple of interesting things worth talking about. So obviously, like I said, we've got a couple of time skips, and we have here seemingly the first time skip. This tattoo, according to some of the information that's come out via, I think, the website, maybe some other releases, I don't know, is the tattoo given to bearers. It's discussed in this world, people who can use magic are dwindling rapidly, in addition to just the availability of magic. The amount of magic that's just in the earth seems to be rapidly decreasing, and that's why this war here is presumably being fought. It seems like during the initial part of the game, where Clive is still 15, there is the threat of a war breaking out, but it hasn't yet, and then we're gonna jump forward a couple of years, and this war will have broken out over control of different territory across the land of Valisthea is the island or small continent or whatever that we're hanging out on. The problem appears to be, for anyone who's not keeping close track of the story, I guess I'll pull up that other trailer real quick. The problem, as discussed here in the Ambition trailer, is that each nation is pretty dependent upon something called the Mother Crystals. There used to be some very advanced civilization here, a couple thousand years ago. What do they say, like 1500 years ago? Yeah, 1500 years, the lady says. So the problem we've got here is that all of the various major cities on this continent are built up around parts of the crystal. I'm left to assume that there's one big crystal underground and there are simply outcroppings of it across the nation, but across this continent/island/whatever, but who knows? And the problem is that the amount of ether, of magical energy being released by these things is, it's starting to run out, and certain areas of the island are starting to look like this. They're not in very habitable shape anymore, and presumably the amount that even these prosperous nations and cities have are also starting to deplete, so all these nations are starting to look at each other's land and going, maybe we should go over there and get a little bit of that green soil where we can actually grow things and live. Anyway, we got a slightly better look at this tattoo here. I think I got distracted a second ago. Be it because of the depleting ether in the realm or whatever, we're not exactly sure, but there seem to be a limited number of people who have access to magic, and it seems like these people are being forced into military servitude. Clive, having presumably narrowly dodged the massacre of his entire family at the beginning of the game, being the eldest son of the Archduke of Rosaria, he seems to have been identified as someone who can use magic and forcibly conscripted into some kind of war. I'm guessing forcibly, I don't know. So he's been given this tattoo to mark him as someone who's useful, who can use magic and whatnot, but probably they don't know who he actually is or that he's running around with dominant power inside of him. Well, I guess we'll wait and see. Now, this is a really interesting one. If we look here, we've got Clive hanging out here with Sid, with Torgal, and with some other dude. And there's also, this guy's carrying somebody on his back here. And not just somebody, it certainly appears, by the outfit that they're wearing, to be, hold on, where is it? Right here. It appears to be Jill. Jill, who we all know will eventually become Shiva at this point, who she appears to be being held hostage by some kind of army, and they're forcing her to go around and do Shiva stuff. Now, I'm not exactly sure how you can hold someone who can turn into Shiva and kill dozens of men in the blink of an eye. I'm not sure how you hold them hostage and force them to do your bidding. Maybe it has something to do with these children back here. Maybe they're like, we're gonna kill these children if you don't do what we say, but not exactly sure. Anyway, these dudes are all speaking a foreign language. If I was watching this on YouTube and I could pull up the subtitles, they don't say anything super interesting, but there is like an English translation of what they're saying in the YouTube video, the YouTube upload of this. She's clearly also fallen on hard times after the fall of Rosaria and is being forced to fight for those guys for whatever reason or purpose, but I'm also left to assume that after Clive is going to escape the circumstances of his slavery or military service or whatever, because we saw in the very first trailer, you guys will probably recall, the first shot of him sitting in front of that fire. He's got this tattoo on, and he's surrounded by some other dudes who are talking about our kind don't question orders. We just do what we're supposed to. We're supposed to go and get Shiva's dominant from the other army or whatever. I assume that that's going to be kind of early on in the first time jump. And here we're seeing Clive after he's defected from whatever that army that he was a part of and running around with Sid. Sid here, according to the website, is not from Valisthea. He's from another part of the world. He came over here for some reason or another. And it's also stated that shortly after arriving on the shores of Valisthea, he awoke as the dominant of Rama. So you don't need to be a local to get this. You don't need to be born here to get this. It's not in your bloodline, which is a weird one. It's already been a weird situation because it was in the description of the dude who's Titan, a really big beefy dude with the kind of buzz cut, who we'll see a little bit more of later. It was stated on the website when his character bio was put up that he was like a common soldier who awoke to it later on in his career, and then he was elevated quickly, and now he's part of the council of his nation, almost kind of running the place, it seems like. But then it stated that Clive, the son of the Archduke, was expected to get Phoenix. He didn't get it. His younger brother Joshua got it. So is this hereditary? Is it not? Is it only hereditary in certain instances? It can't be hereditary in all instances, at least it doesn't seem that way, because it's on the Iron Kingdom, as I talked about at length in the Night Sky's Prince conspiracy theory video. Not a conspiracy theory about Night Sky Prince if you haven't watched it. I went on Night Sky Prince's stream, did some conspiracy theorizing about this game. You can watch the whole thing over on his channel, but there's a clipped part of it on this channel. As I talked about in that video, in the Iron Kingdom, which is one of the factions in this game, dominants are considered heretical and killed upon discovery, so they wouldn't probably have time to sire heirs. So it really is a little bit unclear about how people get this. This dude's from another country, and he shows up and gets the power. There is a shot of Sid. I think it's in this trailer. I'm jumping back and forth between trailers and, losing my train of thought pretty easily. This is the guy who's, this is Titan, by the way. And this is in the Iron Kingdom. It seems like this is also the crystal that the Duchy of Rosaria pulls energy from, and kind of control over it is disputed between them and these dudes, but whatever. Let me see if I can't find the bit that I'm thinking about. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so this is a shot of Sid. We can recognize his swords, we can recognize his outfit. He's pulled his sleeve back here, and we can see he's got the geostigma. It seems like one of the problems with being a dominant is if you're running around as a dominant for long enough and you live, your body starts to petrify. We got a shot here of somebody, not sure exactly who, standing over someone who's been fully petrified, presumably a previous dominant who's now big time dead. Maybe when a dominant dies, they have the ability to pass on their ability to someone in the immediate proximity. Maybe they can choose their successor. But anyway, Sid's motivation and objective, according to the website, is he is a man of science, and he has come to this land in an attempt to try and find a way to fix things on Valisthea. And since becoming a dominant himself, his objective is to create a world where people who can use magic and dominance are not victimized, are not forced to serve certain nations and behave in certain ways. He's trying to fix the status quo. It's an interesting thing because some of these nations treat dominants with respect, other ones treat them as slaves. The royal empire, whatever, church dudes, probably bad guys. It seems like everybody in this is a bad guy. This dude is the dominant from there, and he seems like he's part of the royal family. This guy, Titan, seems like he was a commoner who got the ability and then kind of forced his way into control of the nation. But then obviously, Jill is being used as a workhorse and being held hostage by some other bad guys. But anyway, Sid wants to fix the status quo. He wants to stop everything. It seems like the implication might be that Clive's ultimate endgame is to destroy the crystals entirely and completely end the status quo in this place, completely end the existence of the dominance. That's the current, I think that's the current leading theory amongst fans who are really digging into all of this stuff and digging into some of the language in the interviews and character bios and stuff, but a discussion for another day. Anyway, it seems like this is shortly after he defects. He falls in with Sid here. They seem to have rescued Jill. They've either got her tied up because they're spooked of her, or, I don't know, maybe she's injured. But Sid is apparently very interested in the Deadlands, and his little team of scientifically minded boys live in the Deadlands, even though as they say here, no birds, no trees, and no magic. He seems to be interested in finding a way to survive in this place without ether and without the influence of the crystals. So what's interesting here, I think I talked about in the first trailer way back in the day, and I also talked about it at length when I was talking with the Night Sky Prince. In the trailers, we see a fight between Phoenix and Ifrit that is taking place at some mysterious location, a big castle strut with big crystalline towers all around it. This appears to be the structure. So I think we are to assume that the big fight we see between Phoenix and Ifrit in most of these trailers happened 1,500 years ago and may have been the cause of the collapse of the previous ancient society. And then whenever we see that in these trailers, we're actually seeing a flashback or a cold open or whatever, because this is a clearly decayed version of that arena. But anyway, yeah, in this trailer, I came over here initially to talk about the crystals because we can see them a bit better here. One of the crystals, another one of the crystals, another one. We can see these crystals. Some of them, they all look a little bit different, but they're all quite large. They're all pretty, they all cut imposing images on the horizon that are worth being spooked by. I don't like them. They don't look safe to me. I wouldn't want to live in the shadow of this thing. I don't care if it's been up for thousands of years. I wouldn't want to live here because that thing could fall down like this. For all, there's nothing stopping it. I don't want to live here. I'll live somewhere else. But I guess you can't live far away because it turns into desert very fast. These appear to be very, very contained territories where these crystals are actually any use. See, this guy looks slightly more stable. He doesn't look like he's completely off kilter and about to follow over. There's some green, verdant land around this guy, though. Maybe the other one was less crystal and more climate influence that made it kind of a desert area around there. It didn't look like the dry, ashy, deadlands that we were seeing a second ago, at least. It's worth pointing out that they've talked about this is not going to be an open world game. This is going to have it's going to have some large zones, but it is going to be divided up. Like, okay, it's time to go to the next area. You'll, I don't know, presumably walk into a loading screen or get into a vehicle or something, get into a cart or an airship or whatever, and it'll take you to another location. They've discussed that if they were to try and do an open world, it wouldn't be feasible to make a global scale story, global scale conflict, the way they're trying to depict it. So while there will be large areas, there will be side quests, there will be a lot of opportunities to explore and wander around. It's going to be open zone gameplay, as the folks at Sonic Team have decided to coin it. I'm saying this because I'm looking at this city. This is not a big open world city you're going to be able to run all throughout. At least I seriously doubt it. At the very least, what we're looking at here is a low level of detail distance version of the city, because you can see some flat textures, you can see a lot of stuff repeated, there's nothing in these streets. I have to assume this is not playable. We're not actually going to be able to walk throughout this entire city. I think this game's going to be fairly precise and economical with the areas that it actually lets us explore. Obviously, I don't want to guess about how big the game is or isn't going to be. Just gonna say that it seems like they're going to be very precise about what they do include. They've said there's gonna be big areas. I'm inclined to believe them, but I don't think we're gonna get massive cities like this to explore, because, here's the thing. Most of the time when you have a big city in the game, unless it's the whole game, how much is there really to do in it, How much is there to do? Usually it's just a big, empty bunch of buildings without much to actually see and do. No reason to spend the time developing it, as far as I'm personally concerned. I am not gonna spend my time trying to do theory mongering about tapestries and prophecy and all kinds of big picture story stuff, because I don't really feel the need. I don't like the idea of attempting to spoil the story really in this way anyway. I don't know, there's obviously something spooky up here. And this does not appear to be whatever this thing is. It's not Bahamut, it's not any of the things that we've seen so far. I don't think it might be one crazy thing we see in the next trailer. I don't think so. Got something crazy to look at in the next trailer we'll talk about in a second. We're still in the Ambition trailer right now. There's one other thing I want to point out here. Where is it? Here we go. There's a number of shots of older Clive where we could do this just as well, but this one, people are pointing at it as the easy example. Here we can see he's got some damage to his face here, but no tattoo anymore. So presumably at some point, either between the first and second time skips or during them, he's going to get that tattoo laser surgically removed. But anyway, with all of that, now let's actually get into the Revenge trailer and talk about how all my theory mongering was super duper wrong previously. He was all, hey, if it's accurate, cool. If it's not, whatever. I was doing a big exaggerated bit when I did those conspiracy theories. What conspiracy theories? I won't talk about them. You'll have to go watch the other video where I talked about my Final Fantasy 16 conspiracy theories. So I'm just gonna build upon that instead of going back and recapping everything. We see this mysterious dude in the cloak several times. We see him present seemingly when Ifrit is initially summoned in the early part of the game, when Clive is 15. This shot is clearly an FMV, even though this reverse shot of Clive is in-engine. This is very clearly an FMV. So this dude right here, who can say for sure who he is, who this mischievously smiling gentleman in the ratty hood is? But he seems to be associated with Ifrit. And as discussed previously, we can in fact see two Ifrits. Multiple times now in these trailers, we've seen two Ifrits fighting each other. I had a theory about this another time. To be fair, I've had several theories. I talked about one of them publicly. That theory is looking less likely because, to me, this place where we're seeing two Ifrits fighting, where we fade in and we see one Ifrit just standing here, Clive thinking, seemingly the ruins of the castle of the Grand Duke of Rosaria. We got these two towers back here. We kind of recognize this layout at this point. We've seen it a lot in these trailers. Completely devastated. This could be we're standing in the ruins of it years later, but especially all of this haze. This gives me a this is not real vibe, which further gives this a there are two wolves inside of you vibe. It seems like through whatever means, Clive is gonna become the dominant of, I'm sure one of the central mysteries is gonna be why in the first place, but he's the dominant of this dark icon Ifrit who no one has seen in quite some time, who presumably, I'm gonna go ahead and guess right now that we've been given numbers, and I'm inclined to believe that Ifrit is directly responsible for the fall of the previous high-tech society. I'm beginning to suspect Ifrit here has not shown up for 1,500 years. I'm also inclined to believe that probably what's going on is whoever the previous dominant of Ifrit was 1,500 years ago is probably Cloak Boy. And that consciousness still exists somehow and is battling to take over Clive. And that's how we get this two wolves inside of you situation. Now, some of you may recall my prior theory was less ancient curses, less you have to defeat the Ansem who lingers inside of you, Riku, and much more like, I hesitate to say grounded in a game like this. My previous theory mongering about this was more politically focused. That was absolutely driven by the Matsuno fanboy in me and the hope for just a very complicated political web and maybe downplaying the ancient curses and ancient grudges stuff. Not to say that doesn't exist in Matsuno's work, of course, since all of Tactics is technically building up to an ancient conspiracy and some very bad magical boys trying to do bad stuff, and much of 12 eventually comes to concern the Ocuria and stuff like that. I guess Vagrant Story is just a bunch of dudes who want power and some other dudes who don't want power. There's obviously ancient machinations and ancient energy in that story, but they're not really like active conscious participants in the whole thing. It really is just about these guys, all these modern day humans arguing with each other and fighting each other and trying to get the power. But yeah, part of why I was resistant to the idea of Clive turns into a Ifrit and kills Joshua was he's because they all kept talking about how he wants revenge. He wants revenge on the Dark Icon, and I'm like, if he hulks out and kills everybody and he wants revenge on me, that's so lame. I don't like it in stories when characters, oh no, they got brain controlled, or they got really mad and they killed people. I mean, there's instances of it working, of course, but generally I find it somewhat uninteresting. So I was a little bit concerned if the whole thing was going to be like, oh, he hulks out and kills people, and now he's got to figure out who did this, and it's him. If now there's like another spirit inside of him he needs to expunge. That's why some people were talking about maybe his objective is to remove all dominance and remove the crystals, period, to just get rid of the forces that caused this tragedy to happen in the first place. I really don't know. I still kind of like my previous, my prior conspiracy theory, but who knows what's actually gonna happen at this point. Anyway, we do have time skip. We have time skip Clive here. He's got the cloak and the neat looking gauntlets, but he still has the tattoo. So he's gonna, he is gonna have that for a little while as the older version. Of course, yeah, now I remember, of course, that's why there's not a lot of, most of the screenshots of him after the time skip, he does still have that tattoo. He'll get it laser surgically removed at some point, but clearly not immediately. I was wrong when I said the dude might be a time skip thing. Now this dude, this is a funky looking dude. That's a funny looking man right there. I wonder what he's all about. Now this part is interesting, and I feel like they shouldn't have shown it, because there was still the question lingering in the air of whether or not Joshua was dead or missing or whatever, and I feel like showing adult Clive with young Joshua. I mean, I suppose it could be an illusion, but it certainly feels like hard confirmation that he is, in fact, dead. He could always be alive somewhere, and this is an illusion, hard to say. What I find more interesting about this scene, because this could be, you know, I don't want to assume it's a spoiler, because it could be a misdirect, who knows. What I find more interesting about this scene are the massive phoenix feathers completely static in the background of these two shots. That's very interesting. Wonder what's going on there. I'm sure there's more that we could scrub through and really look at here in a lot of detail. We got this underground cavern where we're fighting Titan, but then it cuts to this, and this is so crazy. It is so far beyond the scale of anything else that we've seen so far. This certainly seems to be the full-scale Ifrit that we've seen plenty so far. Who, to be fair, Ifrit does seem to be a good bit smaller than some of the other icons, but I mean, he's still fairly large. He's fairly large. He's at least as big as Titan's fist here. Titan's throwing him around. I wouldn't be stunned if there's a midway transformation, because most of the dominants seem to have a midway transformation. We've seen Benedict, whatever her name is, with the wings and stuff. We've seen Titan Boy like partially transform with like crystals coming out of his shoulders. I wouldn't be stunned if it turns out that Clive has a DT essentially before he goes full Ifrit mode. But this certainly appears to be full Ifrit. And this is massive. That picture we saw earlier that I was pointing out of the thing at the top of the tapestry, if it had huge wings, kind of a human-looking body, then like a base and big like kind of struts coming out of it. There's no wings on this, but the kind of struts that were coming out could be these big, massive tendrils of earth. I don't know what the heck is going on here. This is crazy. Because, I mean, I would normally think that this is Titan, but it's clearly not Titan because we've seen Titan. If it is an existing summon, and this is, you know, a dominant, then I honestly, my best guess would be like a crazy redesign of Alexander, if anything. But I suspect this is a new thing. I would say it's the final boss, but it doesn't look exactly like the top of that tapestry. It's a little bit beefier. But then again, since when have Catholic big tapestries depicting things necessarily been biblically accurate? But the scale of what's going on here is so nuts. I mean, I would think they wouldn't show the final boss in a trailer, but I don't know how you escalate further from whatever the heck this is, because this is pretty nutso bonkers. This feels like weapon. You know, this feels like the crystal, if there is indeed one, and they're all connected underneath the ground. Like, this is the crystal's final defense mechanism against being destroyed outright, is like, especially because it's glowing blue underneath all this rock. Like, this feels like the crystal manifesting a weapon, Final Fantasy VII style, to fight back and try to preserve itself. I mean, if there's an escalation beyond this, it's gonna be pretty nuts, considering this is gonna start with a dude in the swamp fighting goblins. But hey, you know, that's how JRPGs are. That's how JRPGs are. We do see here, there's not a clear midpoint DT transformation like I was talking about, because we go from full Ifrit to human Clive coming in for a swing. I don't know. This is kind of a midway point, isn't it? Because look at these spikes. Look at these spikes coming off of his armor. That's not his normal design. And his eyes are going, oh, dude! Oh, man, he's been doing the spice. Clive has been mainlining the spice. Ooh, boy, yeah, so no, I was wrong. No more theorizing. He's definitely got a DT. But yeah, I mean, I think that's about it. I mean, I could spend time theorizing about when each of these scenes takes place in the big scheme of the timeline. Oh my God, did that dude just, hold on. This dude right here, watch this dude. Whoa! Oh! His back is broken! He broke his back! Oh, cleft in twain, that dude's spine. Oh man, that's no good. Oh dear. That couldn't have felt good. That must have been painful. I mean, for real, I could spend time theorizing and trying to break down more about, oh, well, the website says this about so-and-so character, maybe their motivation is this, but I feel like I'm already stretching into the point of me doing, I'm really reaching with some of the theory mongering here and being like, well, maybe, I don't know. So I think that's about all I have to say on this here Final Fantasy 16 content for now. I mean, hey, we've only got to wait. What is it, like a little less than 6 months at this point to have all of our questions answered? I guess that is literally all of our questions. One thing that they talked about in one of the interviews, someone asked like, hey, so is there going to be any supplemental material, any movies, DLC, whatever? And I forget if it was Yoshi-P or if it was somebody else who was in this particular interview. But it was stated, Final Fantasy XVI is designed to be a complete product in and of itself. Now, obviously, it could release, and there's some major problems, and oops, they didn't get to finish those features or whatever. But specifically, they've said there's not going to be supplemental movies. We're not planning DLC. We're not planning a sequel. We are trying to design this game to be itself, to be a proper standalone thing. Now, if people really like the game, if people really want to see more, if people really fall in love with this world, then, you know, maybe we'll think about doing something else in this setting. But for now, we're making one game and one adventure. So, hopefully there will be no Kingsglaive movie to sit through. There will be no DLC dangling threads. Again, yeah, listen, people lie all the time, but hopefully we're gonna have a really straightforward, clean experience here. Also, the last time I did trailer analysis, in the very first one, I pointed out Clive's white chocobo was big dead, but Clive is riding a white chocobo here, so maybe that chocobo wasn't dead. Maybe that chocobo barely lived. Or maybe he just went out and found another white one, I don't know. But he did have that pure white chocobo in the early scenes, and then that chocobo seemed to be big dead. But this appears to be last time skip Clive, and he's riding around on a white chocobo. Maybe he just found another one. Or maybe I was wrong. Maybe that chocobo lived after all, and I spooked everybody with that video, whatever, 2 years ago for no good reason. But anyway, I believe that's it for today, folks. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed that. It was a little bit late, so if any of you care, you've probably watched a dozen other trailer analysis videos at this point that have pointed out everything I was talking about here today. But, you know, like I said, I originally wasn't even planning on doing this, but just in the middle of other projects that are taking a little bit longer, I thought, why not? Why not crank one of these out real quick? Could be a good time. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I hope that once I trim this down, it'll be a little bit more manageable than the last time I did this for, yeah, well, I think I'm already less than even the edited version was last time around. So I would say that was pretty contained. That was pretty neat. We got through that in a timely manner. Maybe we'll do this once or twice more before the final game comes out, but who knows? But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. There should be some new exciting content here on the channel soon. Also, over on our second channel, Research Runs, there's going to be some exciting stuff in the near future. If you're not watching our Let's Plays, we, by the time this comes out, I'm not sure exactly when I'm gonna release this, our playthrough of the very short, but very funny, very, very entertaining, Sonic Forces, should be wrapping up pretty soon. And in the near future, our playthroughs of Uncharted 4, A Thief's End, and also, hopefully, I have announced it now, even though technically it's still, oh boy, hopefully, I talked about this on a channel over on, I talked about this on a video over on Research Runs, so you can go look at that if you want to hear all the details. Hopefully, a full playthrough of Final Fantasy VII Remake will be starting up in the coming months. So if you're a Final Fantasy head, you want to hear me talk about Final Fantasy some more, that'll be there. But if you are specifically a Business Division 3 nut, people have been begging me, not people on YouTube, people in my personal life have been begging me to play Final Fantasy XIV with them for a while. The begging has been doubled. I am finally going to make an account and play Final Fantasy XIV. I'm not going to stream the whole thing because frankly, there's not much of a point, even though I have not played it previously. I've watched 14, I'm pretty familiar with the story. There would not be any big story reaction pop-off moments happening. However, I will stream once or twice the beginning of the game. I'll stream making my character. I'll stream running around in Ul'dah, because I'm definitely going to Ul'dah. You can't make me start anywhere else. We'll talk about the game for a little bit. It should be a fun time. So if you swing by Research Runs, probably, maybe not literally tomorrow, the day this releases, but maybe the day after, sometime shortly after this video releases, I should be streaming Final Fantasy XIV once or twice over on Research Runs. So come and check that out if you wanna talk about more nerd Final Fantasy stuff. There's gonna be a lot of it very soon. But regardless, that's it for today. More videos of some shape, form, or fashion, both here and over on Research Runs in the near future, and hopefully I'll see you guys again soon.